everyone. Welcome to Show Up, Stand Out, online visibility series for entrepreneurs. I'm your host. My name is Juliette Stapleton. I'm known as the Queen of Visibility. And today is one of the interviews. It is the first interview of 2020. So it's a very, very special episode. Tune in and make sure that you have everything off. I should have put my phone off actually, because I can hear some notifications, but maybe I'll squeeze that in later. I want to introduce you today to someone very special in my own visibility journey and special person in general in terms of what he's achieved. Let me introduce you to Miha Matlievski, known as the Fail Coach. Hi, Miha. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Juliette. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so excited because you have an extraordinary story, and there is a real story behind the name, that the title that you're using, Fail Coach, because a lot of people can say, what is that? What do you mean? But if you don't mind, maybe we'll start with that story and then we will talk about a lot of things. And guys, we're going to talk about foundations. We're going to talk about, because Miha is a sales coach, and we're going to talk about important things that you might not be focusing enough in your business at the moment. And we'll try and help you. But before that, let's hear that. So what happened to you? How did you become a fail coach?
Well, I mean, every time when somebody tells me, oh, your story is so amazing, I always invite them that they can try it on their own as well if they want to. It's very easy. You just have to lose a whole lot of money, end up a whole lot of in debt, and then try to survive and bounce back. So it's really not that hard. That's the easy part of the story.
But scariest one,
very, very super quickly. So I dropped out of high school when I was 17 and started my entrepreneurial journey. We had a small family business at home. And so that's where I started. Everything was super great until when I was 23, my father was suddenly diagnosed with cancer and died 3 weeks later. And I had no training on how to run a company. I took over the company as the only child. My mom was working in the bank. I mean, I'm really rushing through the story. So, just go back to whatever you want later on. Things didn't go as planned, but thankfully, I was lucky. Some people helped me. They invested a little bit in the company. They saw something in me, and things started to pick up, but I lost the majority share in that family business. And once things picked up, I got a whole lot of ideas again, and I didn't want to do them under that company because, I don't have the majority. So I started opening other companies. While I was doing that, things were going really well. And I thought that it's because I'm that good. But unfortunately, it wasn't that. It was that in Europe, the whole economy back in 2006, 7, 8 was booming before that crash in 2009. And all my companies were basically like that first house from the Three Little Pigs story, the one made of straw. And so when the first wind blew of the crisis, it was just a domino effect. One of my companies was in a huge real estate deal. I was the investor, and because of how huge that whole thing was, and all my other companies, all my other assets were co-signed under that loan from the bank. When that one went down, everything went down. So I got the call on Monday 7th, 2009 in December from the bank, and next day on Tuesday, everything was empty. I ended up not being able to pay paychecks, suppliers in my other companies, and so on. And so instead of owing to just one bank, I ended up almost repaying that bank, but ended up owing what felt like half of the country. I ended up with $5 million in personal debt. I have everything calculated in the US dollars because, my audience is mostly there. But yeah, it was in euros, but that would be the US amount. At first, I didn't really understood what happened to me, but then, week after week, as I wasn't able to solve anything, it slowly came to me like, oh, I'm not gonna solve this. And the phone calls became worse and worse and worse, to the point where after a few weeks, they were more like mafia calls when my debtors called me. And all of that put me in huge depression, anxiety, 24/7, stress, darkness. No, I felt like, oh, I used the good portion of the life, and from now on, it's just this. And so weeks went by, months went by, you don't see any future. You stop having goals and dreams, and suddenly life stops having much meaning. And so after quite a few almost close to attempts, there was this one evening where I was really like 10 seconds away from committing suicide. I was already on the balcony on the other side, just holding myself with one hand. And it was at that moment where I realized, I said something out loud, but I don't want to use the F word on your show. But I guess people can get it. When I realized that nobody's at fault for what happened to me, because up to that moment, I was blaming everything on everybody else or everything else, including the politics and situation and economy and all of that. And yeah, I finally realized that it was me who made those decisions. I chose those people. I did this, I did that. And as terrible as that felt, it also felt very liberating, because I was like, okay, if I do things differently, and if with all those mistakes, I was able to get to the point of having 15 million US in personal net worth, I can do even bigger. And that was that little ray of light. It took me a long time of, the personal development, business development. It doesn't just happen overnight. I had really a lot to learn and change and do differently. So 3.5 years later, 2014, I created a startup, used all the lessons from everything before, and I was able to scale that startup from 0 to multiple 8 figures in monthly revenue in 9.5 months, which is still one of very few startup founders that was able to do so. And the second thing is, because I learned all about laying down the foundations and, making that brick house instead of the house of straw, I was able to walk away basically when I exited, because of the processes and systems in place and so on. And I exited it. I was able to repay all the past debts, went on a long vacation, came back, was bored, didn't know what to do, just went to the first startup incubator, and I said, can I please volunteer to help young entrepreneurs? And it felt so good doing that I kind of fell into the whole coaching thing. I have to correct you a little bit. I'm not a sales coach, but I've done a lot of sales. I think over 3 billion euros in sales personally, in all these 23 years. So I've done quite a lot of sales, and I do really understand the psychology behind it. But yeah, it's more like a business leadership coaching with laying down the foundation, helping entrepreneurs exit and scale their businesses. And then I found my other passion, which is helping entrepreneurs who are just starting out, because most of the time when I'm working with already seasoned entrepreneurs, if they plateau, if they have a problem, it's always because there's something on the basic level, something in the foundation. And we always have to go back to basics. And so I was thinking, if I help new entrepreneurs lay down all of that from the start, they won't need me later. And that's the thinking behind it. And yeah, when I was thinking, I remember I had a few beers with a friend, and we were thinking, like, how do we name this thing? And my friend said, like, everything you say is like, how important is your relationship with failure to bounce back quickly? How much more failure you will have on your journey to achieve success, and how everything you learned came from all the failures that happened to you, and you wouldn't be who you are if there weren't these failures. Why wouldn't you just be the fail coach? And I really love that, and that's how the whole thing started quite a few years ago.
I think it's wonderful. And it really is, first of all, it really fits what you do, because I know we've had conversations before as well. And you are a natural born mentor, and you intuitively know what to say, how to say, and you help with the breakthroughs. And I know that we had a chat once, and I've had probably for 2 weeks, I had breakthroughs after that. Every day I was thinking about what you said, and that caused something else. There's a couple of things that you mentioned in your stories. You're very welcome. Couple of things that you mentioned in your story, and I want to kind of highlight them because I think that a lot of people are falling into similar traps, is when things are not working out or they take longer than they expect, because everybody wants success overnight, but it never happens. Everybody wants to do just easy things, but in order for you for change to happen, you have to do things that are uncomfortable, and they're going to be hard things. But you mentioned that you were blaming everyone and everything else and not taking responsibility for yourself. And I think that this is something that happens to a lot of people, and a big aha moment. And for me as well, I think, and I understand now listening to your story, and 5 million in personal debt. And we also in my family experienced this crash, economic crash in 2009, but we only had about 200,000 debt, and that seemed like the end of the world, like falling into the bottomless pit. But everything is, in comparison, it's nothing. It's
but,
like, yeah,
Juliette,
but it's how it feels.
it's not about the numbers. This is like, I always have to tell the numbers if I want to tell the story, and those numbers get you on podcast and so on super quickly. But like I said, I invite anybody to go through my story. I will gladly help them if they want to lose a lot of money. I know how to do that still. But the thing is, it's not about the numbers, and it might not even be a business failure. It can be something else. The thing is, well, how we understand why we say something is a failure is we set goals that have some high positive emotions if we achieve them, whether that's relationship goals or businesses. Like, it's not about the business itself, it's what it will enable you. I'll be able to support my children, and will be able to travel and do this and do that. And so there's this huge positive emotion attached to it. And then when you don't achieve it, you get into huge negative emotions. And it's really, you need to eliminate emotions, because basically you just have to go with logic back to the process that you were doing leading towards that goal. And every time you will see that your steps were not aligned with the goal that you set. So maybe, it was too big of a goal. And, when you say everybody wants to make money fast and so on, I mean, yes, it's possible. It's not impossible. Every now and then somebody wins the lottery as well. And, the more leverages you have, the more you can speed up your whole business development process. So if you have a lot of leverages, I had one client, a guy who used to work for JP Morgan Chase Bank for 30 something years, and he was then creating something out of his experience. He had everything, who's the audience, what they need, how they need it, where they are, like all of the steps in the business development. He knew answers like this. And so, of course, he was able to scale or grow to, I think, double six-digit numbers in just the first month. But he had so many leverages. And most of the time online, nobody tells you about those leverages. It's like, oh, I made 6 figures in 3 months. But tell us the whole story. Nobody tells you the whole story. Maybe I have a friend who's an influencer, I don't know, on Instagram, and that friend will text out to people for me. But if you don't have that same influencer with that same audience, you can do same business, and you can't achieve the same numbers. I know that my scaling in my last startup was insane, but I was leveraging on 15 years of deep connections with all the people who kind of aligned in that business model. And it was 15 years of me giving and never asking for favors and so on to that group of people, to some of those CEOs that were then our clients, that enabled me to grow that fast, because they had deep trust in me that I know what I do and how I do it. And they were almost like giving me a signed blank paper. You don't get that too often, but so I can give a blueprint to that business to somebody, and who knows, maybe they won't even make 6 figures in the first year.
That is so true. And but when we are saying this, which is absolutely fair, there's too many high reels like showcase how I'm so successful, and I do that too, to an extent. I would tell people this is what visibility did to me, and I give them the best points, because we are talking about the benefits. And of course there's a process, and yes, there's pushing through resistances. Yes, there's trying to let go of your expectations, because when we were discussing this show and I said to you, what topics can we discuss? And you said, set a goal and then let go and then focus on the process. And you just mentioned about letting go of that emotional connection, probably expectation of this happening too fast, or and focusing and analyzing what you're actually doing, how is it aligned with you. It's kind of complicated, and you're right, people are not necessarily taught to do that. But the other way of looking at it is that when you're coming online and you're looking for information, there's just so much information. In real life, we are not exposed to so much information in one area that we're looking for, because we're not walking out on the street and say, I'm looking for marketing advice or sales advice, and then everybody's talking about sales and marketing. And it's not like that at all. I have to make an effort. So we have to understand how the online world works. One question I have for you, for example, somebody's listening to us now and they're saying, okay, Miha, fair enough, you were saying that you've built this business, but you had leverage, you had things, you had conditions and people and relationships that you've nurtured that helped you do that. But what if I don't have that? I don't have yet nothing to, I feel like I don't have it. How would they approach it? Or what?
The first thing, often we don't see the leverages. So when people jump on a call with me and I start asking them questions, usually we quickly discover some leverages. It's almost impossible for somebody to have 0 leverages, but it does happen. It does happen. Or they have all the wrong leverages for whatever they want to do. But then they have to realize that it will take them a bit longer, or much longer. I had no leverages, or almost no leverages, when I started my online journey. Somebody from Slovenia, a small country in Eastern Europe, nobody has heard of. I've never been on, Y Combinator or something like that. I just did my thing and exited it. Nobody knew me. Nobody knew who I was, about my story. So it took me quite some time before I was able to start getting it out and so on. Yes, thankfully I had that story, but on the other hand, it took me 10 years to really, or a bit less, to really bounce back. So, I'm entitled to a little bit of leveraging it. But the thing is, yes, I have students who just finished university, but then they need to be aware that maybe they will need to, find a job, something easy, so that it doesn't drain them completely, and then start building on your business as a side job. Because they need to gather some experience. They need to go to a few meetups. They need to start creating a little bit of network. So if you don't have the leverages, it's not undoable. Everybody starts, as a beginner. Nobody was just thrown in with all the leverages. Here they are. But then you build them through time. And if you have some guidance and support from the right people or the right mentors, to do things that in the right order and so on, you can speed up even that as well. So that can be one leverage as well.
That is so true. And online, it's easier to gain, say, networking, meeting people. It's actually easy. You have your Facebook, have a Facebook profile. You've seen somebody, you've discovered someone, send them a friend request, engage in their content, do it from the heart, but you can build relationships. I started my whole visibility journey with, I think the biggest catalyst for my success was the shows that I started. My easy chats, I did them twice a week. I didn't know anybody. I remember my very first interview. The guy that I was interviewing, he was kind of like a big he had a big online presence. He lived in Australia. He was from Africa, I think, originally, and he was like so engaging on video. And I said, I want you on my show. You have the energy, you have everything. And he said, why me? He couldn't even understand why am I choosing him for my first show. Sometimes you don't know how everybody's looking for visibility. You can start something like this, and that's the way for you to connect to people. Then after a while, I was shocked how some people who I never thought would agree to be on my show were happy to come and talk to me and spend their time with me. So online gave me personally a freedom, because I live for the last 20 years or 15 years, I live in a little small place in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, and I'm so stuck. I'm like a capital city girl and I am so stuck, and I don't have access to people who would share my way of thinking here at all. So online was that window, and no matter where you are now, no matter how you think you're limited in your opportunities and people around you and the location you're in, online it really is your oyster. You can do whatever you want, and you can then create connection and leverage whatever you want and create those networks, as you were saying. And this is the next one. It's talking about networking. I think for many people it's very scary. They say, I'm such a private person, I don't know how to talk to strangers, but it really is truly a foundation of any sort of business. What is your take on this?
Well, I mean, you have to overcome that, or you need to find and partner with somebody. I mean, I had people who I coached in the past who couldn't overcome that. But then my suggestion was, can you either hire somebody? Maybe you have some money and you can hire somebody to do the talking for you. If you don't have the money, you can always try to figure out if you can find somebody who can share your vision and mission and so on. And maybe you can start a partnership together. I have one lady here from Serbia, and she's doing LinkedIn organic marketing. She's very successful, just 1 year in the business, and she already bought like 3 or 4 apartments from it. And she employs 15 people, but her English was terrible and her communication skills weren't really that good. But she's amazing at the operations part. And she partnered with a younger lady who studied in the US, and she is now kind of the voice of the company. She does most of the sales calls and so on. And this other lady, she does the operational part and the management and all of that. And they're an amazing team. Yes, they share everything 50-50, but it's better to have 50 out of something than 100 out of nothing.
Yeah, I suppose that if your business is that something that you can do just behind the scenes and you're not really working face to face with people, that's one of the way to do it. For me personally, I do not speak to strangers in real life. I'm a very private person, but I found that it really was empowering to overcome the fear of talking to strangers and just letting the conversation happen, whether it's going to happen or not going to happen, whether it's going to flow or it's going to get stuck. And sometimes there are real clashes of personalities in these private conversations, very rarely, but it happens. But yeah. I think that embracing this, because the enrichment that, how my life was enriched, I think, from meeting people like yourself, is it's amazing. And that would have never happened if I still was afraid to reach out to someone, say, hey, how are you doing? And what's happening, and finding.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the journey of entrepreneurship is full of things that you love and you already know how to do, but also full of things that you are doing for the first time and might not feel comfortable. And now, how will you bridge those gaps? That's up to you, how resourceful you are. You can always, like I said, partner, JV, this, that. But if you don't want to go that route, then you have to overcome them. It's just, it doesn't work any other way. Building a company, is a very simple step-by-step procedure. And I think if computers could do it, it would always be success. The problem is always mostly in us, not so much in the business, because the steps how to build a company is like gravity. You can't defy it. It starts with finding the product market fit, validating product market fit, and then you go and develop client journey and content marketing and so on. Then you prepare the foundations for the scaling, for the growth. I mean, it's really a step-by-step procedure. But the thing is that, yeah, our inner demons are most of the time the things that are standing on our way. And for somebody, it might be fear of failure. For somebody, it might be imposter syndrome, procrastination, lack of confidence, being an introvert, and so on. So there's plenty of those demons. The most common one, I think, is the fear of failure, but there's plenty of others. And the only way how you can win those demons is if you fight against them every single day. And they don't go away, but you become stronger and stronger and stronger. And so it's easier and easier and easier to show up and to do what you have to do. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that respect everyone, but wait for no one. It's your life, your dream, your goal. And if you really want it, then you will find a way. Is it easy? No. Is it everything gonna work out on the first try? No. Even the best possible business coaches out there can't really tell you for every step what to do, because there's always some testing and trying. The most they can do is tell you what you should test, but then you need to test, you need to measure, you need to then gather that data, reflect, see what's working, what's not, test some more, and so on, and pivot and so on. So there are certain things that you have to overcome. Now, how you overcome that, that's a different thing. If you don't know English, you can learn English, or you can employ somebody who speaks English, or you can partner with somebody, and so on. Or maybe you can create a joint venture with a company from, I don't know, the US that's already serving that market, but not offering what you can offer, and so on. So there's plenty of ways how you can overcome it, but it's up to you, the entrepreneur, to find a way and not make excuses.
I love this. I have all the demons that you mentioned. I fight them every day, and
we all have them.
Yeah, it's like, I think that's the most, I think that if you're an entrepreneur, if you say, I want to build my own business, you have to be a growth hacker. You have to be someone who is prepared to address every one of those demons. And as you said, they don't go away. It's not an end process. It's just, it becomes easier. And one day it'll become so easy that you just completely ignore it. It's never going to bother you. But it takes time. It's like learning a language, or, going to the gym to get a perfect body. It's going to take time and dedication. And we were just talking yesterday about this. What you put in, that's the result that you're going to get. We can give you all the exercises. We can give you all the strategies. But it's up to you to actually face. And as you said, strategies are simple. It's like A to B, 1, 2, 3 steps. Everything is so simple. But how are you going to, what are you going to put into it? So I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Miha, because I think that there's a lot of very important points that we touched on here. For somebody to follow you and be more, get more view in their world and more guidance and more mentoring, where do they go?
Well, the easiest, I share most of the content really on my Facebook personal profile or on my LinkedIn personal profile. They can just follow me there or add me there. But if they want to get to know me and meet me in person, or as in person as it gets, every week, once or twice, because I love giving back to the entrepreneurial community. In the beginning, when I did an interview, I remember I did one interview for a big podcast, and I think for the next 3 days, I was on Facebook Messenger like 10 hours every day. And that's not sustainable. So I need to be mindful of my time. But every week, twice or 3 times, I open up my Zoom client and people can just jump in. We brainstorm, we talk, we get to know each other. And it's their specific questions. in a safe environment. Nothing is recorded. They can ask whatever they want, specific questions, specific answers. So if they want to do that, the easiest way is just to type in your browser frameworkforfreedom.me, and it takes them into my chatbot. And because, every week, depending on my schedule, I schedule them differently, and that's where people get notified about my upcoming brainstorming sessions, or pick my brain sessions, or whatever we want to call them.
That is such a generous way of giving back, and we will have the link to the link you mentioned in the show notes if you're listening to this as a podcast, or in the description to the video if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook. Miha, thank you so much. I just want to actually say, guys, just a very, very quickly, I said Miha is very special, in my journey, because absolutely without me really knowing it, Miha took part in one of my live video challenges in 2017. I started in the beginning of 2017. I think it was November when I ran that challenge. Now at this stage, this challenge has become like an ongoing big challenge that people identify me with. But I didn't even know. But now Miha is one of the first people, and there's only a bunch of people in the world who live stream on LinkedIn. And he's one of the people who were granted live stream access. So if you are on LinkedIn, check out his interviews. They're very, very entertaining. But it's something that I feel so happy to be part of. And the fact, because if you listened to this interview, you can see there's so much really heart focused sort of advice that Miha is giving. Don't make excuses. I know everybody's saying that, but you need to listen to the stories and listen to how these things, not making an excuse that whatever your failure happened, whatever happened to you, it's somebody else's fault. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. Take responsibility from now on and do something about it, right? Those are real advice from the heart. And so this is where I'm happy that, I could contribute a tiny bit in Miha spreading the word through video, and he's a lovely guy. You can see that if you're watching. So there is a great energy. There is a great energy that's very comforting. So Miha, thank you so much again for being my lovely guest today. And
thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. So guys, we will see you on another episode of Show Up, Stand Out. Get in touch with Miha. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments and we will get back to you. See you all later and stay visible. Bye.